Tales of a Dragon. Chapter 1. Grimble's Christmas. Christmas Eve snow was falling gently, leaving a thick, crisp white layer on the ground. In Roseberry Village, busy children were adding finishing touches to their snowmen in the hope that Father Christmas would see and admire them as he flew by on his sleigh later that night. Mr. Pringle watched the hustle and bustle of last-minute Christmas shoppers from the doorway of his toy and sweet shop, whilst passing children stopped by the frosted window to gaze into his shop, which seemed to have a special magic all of its own. Smart toy soldiers stood proudly to attention, looking out at the village green. A chestnut rocking horse stood at the back of the shop, waiting patiently by the Christmas tree for the next child who wanted to enjoy a ride on his polished saddle. The counter was piled high with dozens of different sweet treats: peppermint twists, raspberry marshmallows, toffee bubble snaps, chocolate mice, and lots of mouth-watering delights. Baskets of sugared almonds and sweet-filled red velvet stockings were sprinkled with multicolored glittering confetti, making it look like a rainbow had passed right through the shop, leaving its colors behind. In the frosty corners of the window were bunches of shiny holly adorned with bright red berries, and Mr. Pringle had decorated the window frame with strings of dainty fairy lights, which seemed to wink at you as you walked past. The huge Christmas tree in the middle of the village green towered over the wishing well, sparkling with gold and red decorations. And next to the tree, the village choir, wrapped up warmly against the cold weather, rehearsed their favorite Christmas carols. One or two of the younger choir members even threw the occasional snowball at an unsuspecting choir master, who luckily had an excellent sense of humor and was not quite as unsuspecting as he led the children to believe. But up on the stark white mountain overlooking the village, it was a very different story. There were no brightly decorated shop windows, and no happy children busy finding old hats for their snowmen. If you looked very, very carefully, deep in the icy rock, it was just possible to see the entrance to a dark, gloomy cave. In this cold, dark cave, there lived a dragon. His name was Grimble, and he was a very lonely dragon. Nobody ever went near him or even spoke to him from a distance. Grimble was sad. It was Christmas Eve, and he had no friends to throw snowballs at or to enjoy sleigh rides with. He knew it was Christmas because he had watched the Christmas celebrations for many years, secretly from afar, and his heart had often ached with loneliness and a yearning to be part of the fun and festivities. If only he wasn't so frightened of people. The dragon knew that nobody would come to play with him, because he always roared loudly at anybody who came towards his cave. If anyone ever ventured too close, he had been known to breathe fire in order to make sure that in future they stayed well away. Now, nobody had ever actually seen Grimble. Most villagers thought the roaring must be from a fearsome mountain bear, and Mr. Hawk, the village scientist, had surmised that the blasts of fire must come from natural gas eruptions that were occasionally ignited by static charges in the crisp mountain air. At least that seemed like a fairly plausible explanation. Just occasionally, the children liked to frighten their friends with stories of a scary dragon that lived in the cave, but the adults just smiled and laughed. "There's no such things as dragons," they would say. they only exist in fairy stories. Except for Mr. Pringle, he believed in lots of magical things. He secretly thought there might just be some truth in the rumors that a dragon could live in the cave. It must be said, however, that Grimble did not roar and breathe fire because he was a bad dragon. He had a very different reason for behaving so badly. The simple truth was that Grimble really was terrified of people. Whenever he had given one of his frightened, fire-breathing performances, the dragon would run right to the back of his cave and bury his head under a pile of old leaves. He thought that if anybody came to look in the cave, they would not be able to see him. Grimble did not realize that if he really wanted to hide, he would need tons of leaves to conceal his huge body and scaly tail. He really was a silly dragon. Luckily, nobody so far had wanted to take on the grumpy bear they thought lived there, and so no one had ever investigated further. On this particular evening, Grimble was sitting at the back of his cave with a big dragon tear running down his cheek, just wishing that he had some friends to share Christmas with. Grimble felt so lonely that he began to cry. He cried, and he cried, and he cried. In fact, poor Grimble cried so much that he cried himself to sleep. As Grimble slept, he started to dream. In his dream, the dragon felt very brave and decided to go down into the village to make friends with everybody. What Grimble didn't know was that a large, mysterious, shadowy figure had sometimes been spotted high up on the mountainside late at night by worried villagers who thought that the bear might be looking for food. Grimble apparently had a habit of going out sleepwalking. Up he got, put on his warm hat, made out of a tatty, old, stripy hiking sock, accidentally left behind by a group of day trippers on a mountain ramble, and he marched to the front of his cave. Still believing he was only dreaming, and looking forward to making some new friends, Grimble stepped out into a flurry of snow and set off towards Roseberry. He had seen the children whizzing down the mountain on their sledges and decided that he would have a go. Grimble had super thick dragon scales, so he didn't need a sledge. He lifted up his big green tail with its purple spikes, plonked down on his big dragon bottom, and, well, it was quite an astonishing sight for the villagers to see. A great big green and purple dragon with a stripy sock on his head, sliding down the mountainside. Grimble was having such fun. His big dragon face burst into a grin as he careered into a tree, which brought him to an abrupt halt just outside the village. Grimble chortled loudly to himself as he started to skip into Roseberry. He really was enjoying this dream. The villagers could not believe their eyes as they watched Grimble skipping into the village. To see a fearful dragon was bad enough, but to see a skipping dragon with a stripy sock on its head? Well, nobody knew whether to laugh or to run and hide. The children had been right all along. It wasn't a bear cave, it was a dragon cave.
Aha!
I knew it, exclaimed Mr. Pringle quietly to himself. They do exist. Mr. Hawk, however, was quite frankly, to say the least, astonished.
What?
The villagers did not know that Grimble was sleep-skipping, and neither did Grimble. He still thought he was dreaming about being brave, something he had never even dreamt of before. Well, at least not until now. Just to be on the safe side, most of the villagers ran to hide. Even Mr. Pringle retreated into his shop. Grimble, convinced he was still dreaming, now had to let the villagers know that he wasn't going to hurt them. He went to Mr. Pringle's shop window and gazed inside. Grimble wished he could buy everybody a Christmas present to show he wanted to be friends. Because he had no money, Grimble decided that the best thing he could do would be to stand underneath the huge Christmas tree and sing a song, just like the choir had been doing as he made his way down the mountain. Maybe then, thought the lonely dragon, the people of Roseberry would know that he just wanted to be friends. Grimble skipped over to the Christmas tree, took a deep breath, but not too deep because he did not want to start a fire. And in his best dragon-singing voice, he started to sing the only Christmas song he could remember from hearing the children singing as they played in the snow. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh. This was just too much for the villagers. First of all, they had seen a skipping dragon, and now it was standing on their village green singing jingle bells. They started to laugh, and they laughed so much that they soon forgot that they had ever been frightened of the bear, of the dragon. One by one, they came out of their hiding places and joined the dragon underneath the Christmas tree. Having sung jingle bells at least 5 times, the children begged Grimble to take them for a ride. Using the pointed purple spikes on his tail as steps, the children clambered onto Grimble's back and clung on tightly as he cantered around the village green. During the snowball fight that followed, Grimble showed off his fire-breathing skills as he melted some of the snowballs as they flew through the air. Everyone was sad when it was time for the children to go inside to bed, but they had to be fast asleep by the time Father Christmas arrived with their presents. Grimble bent down so that the children could kiss him on the nose, and he turned and waved goodnight to everyone as he climbed back up the mountain to his cave. When he reached his cave, Grimble flopped down onto his bed, and happy but very tired, he closed his eyes. The morning came, and Grimble woke up. He stretched his tail and smiled as he remembered his wonderful dream about making friends with the people of Roseberry. Then he felt sad again. Here he was on his own in this dark and dreary cave on Christmas Day. Grimble sat down and sniffled. His bottom lip started to tremble, and he was just about to burst into tears when he heard a noise. Voices.
This way!
People. Yikes! What should he do? His knees started to knock and his teeth began to chatter. It was all right being brave in dreams, but these were real people coming towards his cave. There was only one thing to do. Grimble gave a loud roar and breathed a huge, bright orange flame out of the cave entrance. Then he ran to the back of his cave and buried his head under the pile of dead leaves that he always kept there just in case of emergencies. The children, coming up the mountainside to see Grimble, thought that this was a good joke. They ran up to Grimble's cave and looked inside. All that they could see was a big dragon bottom and a quivering tail sticking out of the pile of leaves. "Merry Christmas, Grimble," said one little boy as he climbed up onto Grimble's back. "Stop playing hide and seek and see what we've brought you." "Merry Christmas," stuttered Grimble as he slowly pulled his head out from underneath the leaves. "Yes, Merry Christmas." "Silly," said a little girl holding out a package towards him. "This is just to say thank you for playing with us yesterday. We had such a good time." "Yesterday?" said Grimble in surprise. Slowly, it began to dawn on him that he must have been sleepwalking during the night. He really had been down to the village and made friends with everybody. "Thank you very much," he said, carefully unwrapping the package. Inside, there was a little basket of sugared almonds, just like the ones in Mr. Pringle's sweet shop. Grimble was so happy that he could hardly say a word. He almost burst into tears of happiness when the children asked him if he would go down into the village and share Christmas Day with them. "We're having roast turkey with cranberry sauce. There's plenty for you too." "Oh, please say you'll come," the little girl said. Grimble smiled a huge dragon smile and lifted all the children onto his back, using his long tail. Then, chortling all the way, and with the children holding on tightly, he skipped his way down into the village where Mr. Pringle, Mr. Hawk, all the children's parents, and the rest of the villagers were waiting to greet him. It was the best Christmas that Grimble had ever had, and he knew that he would never be lonely again. His new friends even gave him a brand new Santa hat, which he was very proud to wear whilst he and the children built the biggest snowman that had ever been seen in Roseberry. That Christmas night, Grimble went back to his cave, a very happy dragon. As he began to fall asleep, he started to imagine the many adventures he and his newfound friends would enjoy together. But that's another tale.